GST tussle. Tussle had ensued between the center and states as there was an estimated shortfall of 30,000 crore in the GST compensation cess. What is GST compensation cess? GST was implemented through GST Amendment Act 2016 as a long pending indirect tax reform. Center lost out its power on taxes such as excise duty, whereas states could no longer levy anti-tax, VAT, etc. To allay the fear of states regarding loss of revenue, following mechanism was made. GST Compensation to States Act 2017 was enacted. Under the Act, the percentage of annual revenue growth of a state has been projected to 14%. If growth rate is less than 40%, then state is entitled to receive compensation, which was under GST compensation cess. The compensation payable to states shall be provisionally calculated and released at the end of every 2 months period. GST compensation cess is levied on sin and luxury goods for 5 years. The collected compensation cess flows into the CFI, Consolidated Fund of India, and is then transferred to the public account of India, where the GST compensation cess fund has been created. Issue arose during the period August-September 2019 when compensation was delayed, and the problem has aggravated and further compounded due to the following reasons. First one was there was an economic slowdown before the pandemic. Then there was effect of the pandemic. Then the 14% revenue growth rate was unrealistic, as in the initial meetings 10.6% annual 10.6% revenue growth was proposed by center, but in the spirit of compromise 14% was accepted, which was unrealistic. States stance. Several states have expressed following issues. States like Kerala and Punjab saying that center is not honoring its moral and legal obligation, and it threats the future of fiscal federalism. Then there is the issue of GST Council's ineffectiveness, as 1/3 voting power goes to the center, which gives center a virtual veto over the decision making in the council. Then resort to the legal proceedings, meaning states like Kerala and Punjab has only one option, that is to approach Supreme Court under Article 131 of the Constitution, and no other option left. Then what is the center's stance on the issue? Center is saying that low economic growth and negative tax buoyancy rate, meaning almost 25% reduction in the collection of corporate taxes. Then center has provided two options to the states. Option 1 offered states to borrow the shortfall arising out of GST implementation, and it is through a special window coordinated by Ministry of Finance. Option 2 is it offered the states to borrow the entire compensation shortfall, including the COVID 19. The states will not be required to repay the principal, but the interest shall be paid by states from their own resources. We will come to option 1 and option 2 later. Center has alongside contended that the revenue shortfall is on account of COVID-19 pandemic, which is an act of God. Therefore, there is no legal obligation on the center to compensate the states. Then, center also argues that if GST compensation sets is inadequate to pay the states, then center is not obligated to supplement it. The resolution. The statement the stalemate was finally broken with all 28 states and 3 UTs, with the legislature going with the option 1 provided by the center. Under this option, the center has operationalized a special borrowing window of 1.1 lakh crore, of which 30,000 crore has been already borrowed by center. The primary advantage of option 1 is that interest on the borrowing under the special window will be paid from the cess. Now we will see option 1 and option 2 again. It offered states to borrow the shortfall arising out of GST implementation through special window. Here special window means the interest of the borrowing will be paid from the GST compensation cess, whereas in option 2 the interest shall be paid by the states from their own resources. Then, as this being the debt of the state, it will not reflect in the fiscal balance sheet of center, thus creating a win-win in the short term for both sides. Then there are some concerns related to the GST tussle. The changing dynamics of fiscal deficit, fiscal federalism. For instance, the suspension of MPLADs during the pandemic and diversion of money to the consolidated fund of India. Then expression of doubt by the states on the center fiscal credibility, that is transparency in handling of GST compensation cess. Then there are some way forward. Rebuilding institutional capital to suit the center-state relationship. Then widening the ambit of GST, meaning the current coverage of GST exclude electricity, petrol, diesel and real estate, as also agriculture. Then structural reforms like reviewing of GST on continuous basis and increasing tax compliance, meaning tax compliance mean increasing tax base. And last is transparency, increasing transparency in areas like working of the GST council, handling of GST compensation cess, and decreasing over reliance on cess and surcharges could repose the loose faith of states in center's fiscal management.